Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining us from different parts of the world. This is the third day of Climate.Culture.Peace and interestingly, the second day of our youth forum. Today's session has something very different to offer, and let me tell you how. Well, when we think of it, communication has been and will always continue to be at the core of everything. Be it communication of narratives from our past, be it communication of existing issues, be it communication of science or risk, or even communication of strategies, policies, and plans. But what has changed over the years is the way we communicate or the way we express ourselves. In this era of Instagram Reels and TikTok and whatnot, the media of communication has evolved. We often have ideas to share or stories to tell, but we lack the means or the inspiration to do so. Realizing that these voices, our voices, also should be heard, we have designed this session in two halves. So in the first 45 minutes, we would be listening to inspiring presentations from various professionals about documentation, about narration through pictures and music. And I hope that these presentations would spark in us bright ideas to come forward and share our insights, our views, our perspectives, and our stories. In the second half of this session, the last 45 minutes or so, we would be having an open discussion about envisioning a future that we all want. If we really believe that culture is indeed a tool for resilient development, then we must start collecting our thoughts and strategizing a way forward, making sure that everyone, irrespective of where we come from, what backgrounds do we belong to, everyone should be included in the process and no one is left behind. With this, I would like to introduce my co-moderator for the first half of this session, Saran. Saran is a member of Confederation of Risk Reduction Professionals, which is the national platform for youth and young professionals in India working either in disaster risk management or climate action. She's also a doctoral student at the Dalbagh Educational Institute in India. She holds a master's degree in disaster management with a concentration in conflict, peace, and development. She has also worked as research consultant with Oxfam in the project Transboundary Rivers of South Asia. Welcome, Saran. The virtual floor is yours. Please take it over.
Thank you, Dr. Repaul, for introducing me to the gathering today. It is an absolute pleasure for me to be a part of this event today again as the moderator for the day. And I think, honestly speaking, after yesterday's session, it was not easy for me to hold my horses until today's session could begin. And I think I must credit you for leaving me excited and curious when you briefed me on what all is lined up for today. And so still holding it all up high, I will take a moment to quickly introduce our first presenter of the day. Zeynep Yılmaztürk, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is a freelance architect and an architectural photographer, currently writing her thesis for her master's in sustainable heritage management at Aarhus University. She's also working as an heritage recorder at Anka's Antalya Cultural Miras Dernegi's current project, Kirkambar. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing it again. Documentation, digitalization. Sorry. Okay. Documentation, digitalization, and promotion of the traditional beehives and granaries in Teke Highland, Elmale, Antalya, Turkey. Zeynep will be presenting on climate change and abandoned rural heritage. Zeynep, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. I will be sharing my screen. 1 second. So, hello everyone. One second, I'm having some issues. Okay. So today I will be talking about the relationship between climate change and rural heritage, focusing on traditional beehives and granaries as rural heritage of Elmalı in Antalya. The presentation is based on the outcomes and the analysis of Antalya Cultural Heritage Society's current project Kirkambar, which is about documentation, digitization, and promotion of traditional beehives and granaries in Elmalı. So to start with, let me give you a brief information about the place. Elmalı is on a 2,000-meter height district on alpine zone of Antalya in southwest Turkey. Elmalı has been a popular settlement since Paleolithic era due to its geographical location as being in the Lake District of ancient geography with its polyas and sinkholes. And it used to be a famous place for its white cedar and juniper forest as well. You can see some photos from different villages of Elmalı in here. And Elmalı used to be the center of agriculture and trade market as well back in the days. So as I mentioned, our focus is traditional beehives and granaries in Elmalı to discuss the consequences of climate change on rural heritage. So I will be briefly introducing the main characteristics of the traditional beehives and granaries now. Different from regular beehives, traditional beehives in Elmalı stand up as unique monuments, as you can also see in the slide. The beehives are made of juniper tree and they are set on top of a wooden mat and they're covered with juniper bark to have them as a protection layer. And this platform is placed on 3.5-meter towers so that they will be protected from the wild animals as well. We have an interesting fact in here. Archaeologists work in the area draw attention to the resemblance between traditional beehives and ancient Lycian pillar tombs in here. And beehives stand as an origin point for the construction style and the shape of these pillar tombs. You can see a technical drawing here of a traditional beehive. So continuing with the traditional granaries, they are made of cedar tree and constructed by using an interlocking system. Cedar trees are particularly chosen due to their high durability and efficiency for preserving crops. As you can also see in here, they have 2 stories. The upper part is to store crops and the lower part is to store different equipments. They can vary in shape and sizes depending on the wealth of the family and the amount of the crops the families are harvesting, and also depending on how it would be convenient for different families. So we have, again, different types of traditional granaries, and on the left-hand side, there is a different version. It's combined with the house in the one on the left. Again, similar to the traditional beehives, we again see a resemblance between traditional granaries and this time Lycian rock tombs. Again, the construction of the tomb is inspired by the construction style of the traditional granaries in here. Again, we see another technical drawing. And besides traditional beehives and granaries being a tangible heritage, there is also the intangible aspect. Both traditional beehives and granaries are made by masters, so no mass production is involved, and their unique construction techniques are passed from masters to their apprentices. So for these to maintain their existence as a part of Elmalı's rural heritage, they have to be used so that they can be produced more and or repaired, which will also keep the intangible heritage alive and inheritable. However, the rural heritage of Elmalı, together with both its tangible and intangible aspects, are at risk due to climate change. Water resources in Elmalı play a key role in villagers' lives for maintaining their practices, such as agriculture and beekeeping. The decision of drying up Avlan and Karaköy lakes to gain more land for agriculture, and it acts as the main trigger of climate change realized in Elmalı. These dried out lakes brought up severe consequences such as drought due to the decreasing amount of rain and snowfall per year. And this has affected the soil fertility. And the efficiency in agriculture, together with the diversity in natural fauna, has changed. The amount of crops harvested has decreased, together with the number of different plants and flowers that were beneficial for bees to make honey. It is inevitable to realize the impacts of climate change on rural heritage of Elmalı, which in this case, the traditional beehives and granaries, since they are highly dependent on nature. Due to the change in natural flora, depending on the degrees of rain and snowfall, bees are in need of traveling to find plants to make honey out of them. So today it's not possible to have bees on certain areas, which means that the traditional beehives are losing their function as a stable beehives. To be able to continue beekeeping, the way of practicing has changed. So the villagers are not using bees anymore, but the portable ones. And a similar situation is observed in traditional granaries as well. Majority of the villagers has stopped using their traditional granaries since the soil has lost its fertility and they are not capable of harvesting high amounts of crops. Villagers have shifted to greenhouse cultivation as well, which leads into excessive water consumption in a district especially which already has lost some of its main water resources. Together with this shift, the villagers also end up in abandoning their agricultural practice and becoming detached from their culture and heritage. Since there is no need for granaries, the knowledge behind the construction and the practice of inheriting these methods and the practice of teaching the apprentices is also being forgotten and lost. There is also another aspect in here. Even though there would have been enough crops to store in the granaries, since the climate change also has an impact on cedar forests, it's now really hard to find resources to build more of these granaries or repair these granaries because the forests are affected highly badly because of the climate change. As a result, since the main factor that has led villagers to abandon their culture and heritage is the climate change in Elmalı, if we want to preserve the rural heritage in here for longer terms, of course, then actions should be taken to raise awareness about climate change and to mitigate the effects of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. This was not known, not even remotely heard, for me at least. So thank you for bringing to us this fascinating presentation with a detailed explanation in a way that we could at least draw a close picture of how traditional granaries and beehives, they form a significant element of rural heritage, both tangible and intangible heritage. So thank you once again, Zeynep.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Noor Mahir and Talha Ulash. Do we have them here? Okay, seems like they have not been able to join yet. So maybe we can move to the next presentation. We have with us Shahzad Ahmed Malik and Tanisha Tewari. Shahzad Ahmed Malik is from Himalayan state of Uttarakhand, a researcher, an architect, and an academician at ICOMOS, which stands for International Council on Monuments and Sites. He's been a member since 2019. Shahzad is a trained urban regeneration professional with a master's degree in urban regeneration from Department of Architecture and Acoustics, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. His interests align with post-2015 Sendai framework of disaster risk reduction, heritage-led regeneration, and urban planning. His co-presenter, Tanisha Tewari, works as an eco-architect in Uttarakhand, exploring its tangible and intangible heritage, giving her an opportunity to work on different ecological restoration projects in Himalayas, along with residential and commercial projects, while connecting them with permaculture designing, regenerative living, and vernacular architecture in best possible way. Speakers, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Me and my co-presenter have a video for all of you. It pretty much aligns with what the earlier presenter has presented through graphically and pictorially. We have a video submission from our state, which is Uttarakhand, which is the northern state of India, and the video summarizes the change in the lives of the peoples through the policies of the government, which led to the disasters, which again are not natural, but are implication of what our bureaucrats, what our governments are doing for us people. So I'm sharing the presentation. I'm sharing the video with you.
Uttarakhand is one of the northern states in India. It is also known as Devbhumi, the land of gods. Here, the people have a very simple and slow lifestyle. Culture is completely blended with the nature, from farming to harvesting, from cooking to sharing, from running in the fields to crossing the rivers, even from preparing tea to living in a traditional house. Here, everyone participates equally, and everyone lives a very self-disciplined life which is in harmony with Himalayas. So where it went wrong for the people of Uttarakhand? In last 10 years, the government of Uttarakhand has taken major decisions for increasing the tourism footfall. And yes, they have increased it also. To facilitate this, the government have introduced land change policies to set up hotels and hydropower projects, sanctioned and constructed all-weather highway roads in environment-sensitive areas, which includes mining and cutting of trees, leading to dry summers and forest fires, extreme weather conditions, and drying of rivers. The soil erosion is a major part, and a loss of green cover is there. In fact, there is a lot of green cover loss. And all this have led to rise in temperature, collapsing of glaciers, floods, landslides, cloudbursts, loss of properties, forest fire, loss of lives. Eventually, there are no more water mills, aquifers, clean rivers, cattle rearing, and wildlife. At present, the extinction rate of plant species have reached up to 7 to 5% per year as per various estimates. The climate change have affected majority of people in Himalayas. The people are forced to migrate in the search of safer places, employment, and life security. Out of 16,000 villages, approximately 4,000 villages fits in the category of post village, means where the people have migrated permanently. The few who still wants to stay are forced under economical pressures and have started using toxic chemicals for the farming. Many government agricultural policies also promote the use of pesticides and give them in subsidies. The tourism footfall has contributed in environmental disturbances only. As per studies, in Nainital, which is a very popular tourist destination of Uttarakhand, produces 38 metric tons of waste per day because of tourists. And the same story is in another tourist destinations of Uttarakhand also. The objective of introducing all these policies was said to improve tourism and to generate employment for the local people, for reverse migration. But all these so-called development projects have disturbed Himalayas and the lifestyles of Himalayan people. Here is what everyone knows.
Doesn't have even a single air quality monitoring station.
I call it pre-monsoon, means about March, April, May. That is the period which is supposed to be dry almost every year. It is getting intensified because of climate change.
But still, it's going on and becoming more complex with every development project. Everyone from the Himalayas know that climate change is for real. And now it's time to decide for our future. And how can we create the livelihood opportunities for people without compromising the ecology of Himalayas. Namaste.
So that was just a submission of what the people of Uttarakhand has been facing in real life risks from the climate change, not only the natural and ecological reserves, but also the lives of the people living in hilly areas of my state have been changed, completely altered. They were forced to change their way of life. Tanisha, would you like to add something?
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation and for the small introduction. So here in Uttarakhand, what we are facing right now is a major crisis because the major livelihood opportunity for the people is farming. And because the climate change is for real and people are sacrificing on the pattern of farming and the way they used to live, the government have incorporated many policies, and all those policies are not well thought of, I would say, for the coming future, and that is creating a lot of destruction in the ecology. And in the name of ecological restoration projects also, we are not doing much. So the difference between the restoration and between what is going on is huge. So this video is regarding that only, and we hope it reaches out to maximum people and to also to the people and also to the government who can make a change, who can bring a change. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I don't know. I think a picture speaks 1,000 words, as we know, and your video definitely spoke reams in context of the role of government in climate change and its adverse impact on the living of the Highlanders. And what lies behind the tall and majestic beauty of the Himalayas is not generally something that is thought about, let alone know or learn about it. So your video presentation specifically was a brief and crisp acquaintance for us with the undeniable truth, something which should not be turned a blind eye to. So thank you, presenters, once again for that wonderful video that you shared with us. I would like to take a minute and open the floor for questions and doubts or comments that the gathering may have, if any. If they'd like to share anything, you may either unmute yourself and ask or maybe raise your hand. So, okay, in case we don't have any right now, maybe we then move on to the next one. In fact, we will move back actually. While unfortunately our previous pair of presenters could not join, they have shared a video with us, and I'll request Dr. Repaul to share that video with us. But before that, I'll quickly introduce those two presenters to everyone and also read out the abstract that they shared with us so that we can relate with the video that they shared. So our speakers were Talha Ulash, who was born in Ankara, a central Anatolian city, and is a student of architecture at Yildirim Beyazıt University. He is obsessed with design, culture, civilization, and architecture. And co-presenting with him was Noor Mahir Zakaria Al-Zawabi, a Jordanian third-year architecture student studying in Ankara. She has a passion for art, design, and literature. They were going to present on KAM-Çubuk. So the main aim of creating KAM-Çubuk, which is a research center that mainly focuses on studying the rural cultural heritage of central Anatolia, is protecting the identity of rural heritage and bringing back its values through documentation, research, and development. The targeted rural heritage is of architectural, artistic, agricultural, and industrial types and values. The start was by conducting research on the architectural heritage records from the works of international travelers and documenting. Dr. Repaul, may I request you to start the video, please?
Literature, painting, sculpture, music, construction culture, architecture, craft, language, religion, poetry, cinema, theater, All these elements are part of the whole we call culture, and culture is the most important concept that creates a society and makes it its own. Culture is a set of phenomena that changes with the effect of time for centuries and adapts to time and maintains its continuity with the continuity of that society and the concrete parts of this whole. Today is a time when nations begin to forget their own culture, and maybe they are forced to forget, and this is the greatest thing that can be lost for all humanity. We can call it ancient knowledge. Why is this disappearance such a disaster? Because we are talking about the whole of the knowledge that humanity has
Repaul?
accumulated and developed.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I
Yes.
think the video is not moving. There's some error. Maybe can you please
First
check it
day.
once?
This is what I have actually, so I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Also from our side, this
Sorry
is the
for that
video.
interruption.
Yeah, no worries.
Which has been tried and confirmed not once, but hundreds of thousands of times as a result of experience. The methods, materials, and construction culture used in the production of these structures, together with the building stock that continues to disappear rapidly in Turkey. On the other hand, the products that people use for their daily needs, namely the craft products, the method they produce, and the production culture, and the products that we'll discuss under the title of art and their production culture, in addition to all these intangible cultural assets that are important part of the culture. We know that there is a huge infrastructure of each of those products in Central Anatolian region, and that there is a cultural stock even if it has been forgotten or lost. But if we want to reach this information today, it is clear that we need to make a special effort, academic and non-academic, to clean the thick layer of dust on these cultural elements. These efforts should be to establish a link between the present and the past, which were served by human hands, and to provide benefits to humanity through this link. To unpack the link, I mentioned a process that starts with documenting the methods used in the production of tangible and intangible products produced in the past within the framework of academic rules. And after this step, connecting this document information with today and making studies on how to make it workable today, and reveal its roots in the past. Products that extend from the past take strength from the past, but are products of today, that is the continuation of transition. For example, if we consider a product that is included in the cultural building stock in Central Anatolia, it is necessary to make survey studies and document this product, then to reveal the construction techniques used in this building line with the documented information, and to make new production with these techniques in the next process, and to carry these cultural elements to the present day to ensure. To give examples of studies on the transfer of culture to the present day, building materials derived from mud brick obtained by compacting the soil and structure produced from these elements. One of the structures included in the Central Anatolian building stock is the Matuma village mosque in the Bar district of Ankara province. This mosque was built 760 years ago. This mosque has been restored by the General Directorate of Foundations in Ankara today. However, the information that needs to be obtained from this mosque has not been taken. Researches on the construction technique have not been carried out either. It is aimed to conduct method researches on the products from each disciplines. It is also aimed to share the products obtained from these researches with the public. To give examples of studies on the transfer of culture to the present day, building materials derived from mud bricks obtained by compacting the soil and the structure produced from these materials, and a research center created to do all this: literature, painting, sculpture, music, construction culture, architecture, craft, language, region, poetry, cinema, theater. All these elements are a part of the whole culture we call, and the culture is the most important concept that creates a society and makes it its own. This type of research center is what we aim to create at KAM. KAM is a rural studies center aimed to create what we've mentioned in the following. In Turkish, Kırsal Araştırmalar Merkezi, KAM.
Over to you, Saran.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Repaul, for sharing that video. And probably again, we can take the questions towards the end of this session in case of any regarding that video. Now, we move on to the tale of Mumbai. Where's the culture? Presenting which we have Rahul Salunke, who initially worked in chemical manufacturing before realizing their polluting nature, therefore switching his career into health, safety, and environment. His key responsibilities are to identify hazards, health and safety, social and environmental, for organizations and to keep workers, societies, and nature safe from those hazards. Photography is his passion, and he uses photographs to demonstrate the current scenario and spread awareness within the workforce to mold their actions for preventing or reducing pollution and cultivate their thoughts for a better environment for coming generations. Rahul, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Saran. So the name of my story is The Tale of Mumbai, Where's the Culture? So basically, Mumbai is the financial capital of India, and it gives immense opportunities to the people to work in Mumbai. That is why most of the people, they would like to migrate to Mumbai. It gives them the lifestyle, it gives them the better health facilities, it gives them and their children a better education facilities. And that is what Mumbai is. So it is a municipal office, which is quite old, and it is called as a city of dreams, basically, because it fulfills the dream. So Mumbai population is approximately 9 million, area approximately 386 square kilometers with a population density of 25,000. So just for the comparison, the population density of Rome is approximately 800. So that gives you the demonstration how much dense the population at Mumbai is. And the numbers are from 2011 census. So it's been 11 years. So the population must have increased. But even though we have so much of population in Mumbai, with so much of dense population, so much of huge crowd, you would always find Mumbai people welcoming. You would always find a smile on their face, and you would always find they're helping each other. So that is a unique part about Mumbai, and that is why most of the Indian people, they would like to stay in Mumbai. When you have such a big crowd, when you have such a big population, you need to have something to help people for their transportation. So we have called Mumbai Local, where approximately 7.6 million people, they commute on a daily basis. The network is spread across 423 kilometers. So the usual capacity for this train, the single train, is 1,800, but during the peak hours, it extends up to the 5,000. So it quadruples whatever the usual capacity is. So when you have so much of people into the single train, that itself creates opportunity to find stories between those people. These people, they interact on a daily basis. They have fixed timings for the trains. They have friends specifically in the train. So you might find people who are reserving seats for their friends. Sometimes they don't even know the name of that particular person, but they might fight with you just for that particular friend. This is the usual picture in the evening where you will find most of the people are waiting for the train. Even though the train frequency is very often after 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you will not find this rush is getting over. Like it is always filled with the crowd. So every morning, like the first train starts at the 4 a.m., sun comes to greet their early travelers. You will always find the people are moving faster than the trains during the suburbs because they don't want to miss the train. Because if you miss the train, it is as good as meet up with your friends, and they don't want to do it because they don't want to miss the opportunity to share the stories. They don't want to tell their friends what exactly going around their families. So it is kind of culture which has been grown into Mumbai, and it's just because of the trains. It's the only place where, you know, children, they go to this window just to see unusual things like trees and buildings moving around. And the place in Mumbai where we all know that it is a mixture of the culture, where we have so many religions, and you won't find a single person asking you a religion. There are no differences, there are no barriers when you're into the Mumbai local. And yeah, it is always difficult to get this window seat, but you always strive for that. And yeah, the stories never ends. So you just sit and you would always find someone is telling someone, and stories never end. And for some people, journey of the local, it never ends. They start like in their teens, they travel, they go to their work, and till they die, they just travel with these local trains. But something happened, and you know what makes this train journey unique is about the Mumbai people and their festivals. So India is always known for their spiritual practices, and since Mumbai is a hub, and all the people across the nation gather here, you would find almost every spiritual practice at the Mumbai. This is one of the event where we have these human pyramids just to celebrate this just Janmashtami, which not only demonstrate the power of unity, but it also enhances the teamwork. And that is something replicate during the when you deal with such big population, you need to have the unity. So this kind of cultural activities, it enhances the unity into the Mumbai. Similar to this, we have the Ganesha Utsav, which is a celebration of the Lord Ganesha. So it is celebrated for the 10 days. So you would find people, they dress up into the traditional wears. They just go to take their Lord, and they just celebrate for these 10 days. The unique thing about this festival is that you would find the children are very much interactive. They are so excited about it. And yeah, this is one of my favorite picture, where you'll find that some of the people, they are into the balconies, but some of the people, they just came out of, and they're just taking risks just to have a glance of this particular Ganesha. So it brings the relation together, and this is one of the things that maybe most of the people, they don't understand why India have so many religions and still they manage to be together. It is just because they have these cultures. We do have the celebrations over the period of time. It also gives the employment to these, idol creators. It's a big market. It's a big employment for them. So culture is bringing the employment as well. So on the 10th day, we have to immerse these idols into the water as a practice. So this is one of the picture. I took it in 2018, where it is completely jammed with the people, that these idols will eventually get submerged into water, and they would wait for next year to celebrate this Ganesha Utsav. But surprisingly, in 2019, we had this COVID, and we had restrictions, and there were very less people who were allowed to be on the streets, and you cannot enjoy the festival. So eventually we losing the opportunity to interact with the people, to have the interaction within the relations. And because of the COVID, lifeline of the Mumbai, it stopped first time. And in first time, we literally felt how it looks like, how it feels to be entrapped in the cage. Roads were never so empty at the Mumbai. And then there were several incidents after that. We had some rockets attack at the Rajasthan. Because of the climate change, we have some forests burned down. We have several storms and cyclones because of the climate change. And maybe we are blaming for like governments, industries, we are just not taking the responsibility that it is something that, am I doing something wrong? Everything is getting dried and we're just looking at it and blaming each other. So this picture, I took it at like a rural area where I went for the trekking. In the morning, I saw this boy. He was just taking out water from this particular pit. So by the time we came back from the trekking, that boy was still taking out the water. So it was taking time to get some water into this pit. So basically someone else is paying for our mistakes. So in the cities, we are just using water like anything. We are using our resources that, and we're still talking about the environment, but at the end, someone is paying much more than it is expected. So at the end, we need to understand that nature know how to balance itself. Like it has been, like we have seen the ice age, nature has seen everything and it has like capabilities to balance itself. But do we know how can we heal ourselves if we lose the only planet where we stay? We do really need to understand that, you know, we belong to Earth, Earth doesn't belong to us. And we're not even losing the, you know, this great nature, we are losing our culture, which makes us different from this species called animal. Only thing different what we have from animals is our cultures, you know. We think about the future, we think about activities that won't be there if we, you know, have this cultural, if we have this calamities. So to end up, like only option I can see is that we can start educating our young generations, because the moment, the time I came to know about this climate change, I was already 2021, because our education systems are in such a way that it will help you to understand about the history, it will help you to understand about the science, but it will hardly tell you about the climate change. We can, you know, emphasize, we can educate to whatever extent we can do, and we can educate the children. So from very start of the beginning, they can start, you know, catalyze the change what we require for this. Thank you.
Okay. The city that never sleeps. Thank you,
Yeah.
Rahul. City of Rains. I definitely went back to my time, my 2 years experience with Mumbai, when I learned that I think in almost all the contexts that Mumbai does fall at times, but then when it rises, I think it rises like a phoenix. Like it never fell. And the railway tracks of the Mumbai local definitely brought back the Petricho, which was a relief in haven or a disaster of sorts, depending on where did we live. So thank you for that excellent video presentation. So back when I was doing my master's, I had a few friends from Northeast India, and I was amazed at how they very inspiringly exhibited their cultural diversity in almost everything that they did, right from their delicacies and dishes to the celebration of festivities, their festivals, values highly in their culture. So taking from that, up next, we have a blend of melodies from Northeast India by Mriganka and Nitesh Vishwakarma.
Okay. Hello, everyone. When you got to know about this conference, thank you. When you got to know about this conference meeting, so we had a discussion with our professor from our disaster management team, and we discussed like, can we come up with something to describe about the musical artists, various artists and musical authors, so that how they contribute to the culture and tradition of our Northeast India. So here we have come up with a video, with a short musical video to describe how the various musical artists has contributed to the climate change and traditions of the state and all the states, all the 7 sisters of the Northeast India. And here's a short description video. Please have a look. I would like to request Repaul sir to please kindly share the screen. Thank you.
Yes, let's see it.
বিস্তীর্ণ পাররে অহংখ জনরে হাহাকার শুনিও নিশব্দে নীরবে বুঢ়ালুইত তুমি বুঢ়ালুইত বোৱা কিয় বিস্তীৰ্ণ পাৰৰে অসংখ্য জনৰে হাহাকাৰ শুনিও নিশব্দে নীৰৱে বুঢ়ালুইত তুমি বুঢ়ালুইত বোৱা কিয় নৈতিকতাৰ স্খলন দেখিও মানৱতাৰ পতন দেখিও নিৰ্লজ্জ অলস ভাৱে বোৱা কিয়
আগলি বাহাত বগলি নাচিছে আগলি বাহাত বগলি নাচিছে আল ফুলে কৈ কহুৱালিছে মুখে মুখে হাঁহি দেখোন মুখে মুখে হাঁহি দেখোন ফুলৰ পাতৰ আজন কাচন এই গাঁও আপোন আপোন এই গাঁও নিচেই আপোন
खोटहरू मेरो छाडेर डाँडा काटेर मुङ्लान बस्यो कान्छा गाउँ घर छाडेर नौ डाँडा काटेर मुङ्लान बस्यो कान्छा गाउँ घर छाडेर नौ डाँडा काटेर मुङ्लान बस्यो कान्छा गाउँ घर छाडेर ताई नदी हृदय যায় অথচ শেষ নয় তাই বহুদিন হল কত দেখায় অথচ মনতে রয় তাই নদীর দৰে শুকাই যায় অথচ শেষ নয় তাই বহু দূৰ গৈ উলটি উৰা চাই মনে তাক মানি
Mriganka and Nitesh, I don't have to say anything to compliment because I definitely fall short of words to admire the music, the message, the photos, and most importantly, your effort that must have gone into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there
so
anything
much,
that you would want to add further?
Yeah, I've been looking to the comments below here, and thank you so much, everyone, that you liked the video. We tried our best, and thank you so much.
Thank you once again. So, time and again, we say, argue, cry out loud that disasters are not natural. Why do you think that is? I think the upcoming Ode to Natural Disasters, which is the concluding music of this session, will explain that. This music is by Manash Kamal and Bhuyan, Manash Kamal Bhuyan and Jyoti Hazarika. Manash. Yes. Hi, Manash.
Hi everybody. Greetings to everyone. So as our previous speaker, Mriganka has showed us this very beautiful musical video about various songs from all around the Northeast India related to the contribution of a musician or artist with respect to climate, culture, and peace. While this discussion was originally going on, we discussed with our disaster management faculty in our university of how we are taught there is no natural disaster, but the world doesn't yet seem to approve that. So me, Manash, alongside with Jagrat, and with the help of DRR professionals from the CRRP India, who beautifully penned down the lyrics, decided to prepare an original song where in the world of TikToks and Insta Reels, our songs and share the message about no natural disaster. So I will kindly request Repaul sir to share the video with us.
When the earth shakes and the forests burn, we all run and cower. But when it's all over, we stand inside. We can't help it, it's nature. When the waters rage, all the clouds enrage, we all shiver and cover. But when it's all over, we all stand inside. We can't help it, it's nature. wake unhappy, yeah. But hold for a moment, breathe in the thing, did we go somewhere wrong? Is there a solution? Is there a retrospection? No actions done and matches undone, and words all gone unheard. Yeah, so hold for a moment, breathe in and really think, can we not right the wrong and write a new resilient with matches alright and words of affirmation, so then when it's all over we don't stand and sigh, we can't help it, it's nature. Hazard a guess of what could be worked on, a risk and exposure, a vulnerability, or just something we stumble upon. No more greed, no more need now. It's about a deed, one of mine and one of yours, to break away from idealism, so that when it's all over we don't stand inside, we can't help it, it's nature. But hold for a moment, breathe in the thing, did we go somewhere wrong? Is there a solution? Is there a retrospection? No actions done and matches undone, and words all gone unheard. Yeah, so hold for a moment, breathe in and really think, can we not right the wrong and write a new resilient with matches alright and words of affirmation, so then when it's all over we don't stand and sigh, we can't help it, it's nature.
Thank you, Manash. That was a wonderful video and excellent music. I'm
Thank you.
spellbound once again. Thank you so much for that. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody who was behind this project. I want to thank especially Jagrat because he beautifully sang and composed the whole thing. And I want to thank especially Repaul sir for making this beautiful video for us for the song.
Thank you, Manash.
Thank you.
And just to let everyone know, the lyricist is also here amongst us. None other than Saran. She's the one who wrote the lyrics. So kudos to you too.
Thank you, Dr. Repaul. Thank you once again. Thank you, Manash, and thank you, Jyoti. With that, we wrap up the first session. I thank all the speakers, presenters for presenting and sharing their videos with us. It was indeed a power-packed session, unquestionably. And some were a surprise package, expanding our horizon to a new set of facts. And some were so relatable for a few of us that I think I personally want to have an action replay of the entire session, but then I do not want to be the one who hears get out of here right now. So with that, I take your leave for this session and would request Dr. Repaul to take the floor back into his custody.
Thank you, Saran. And this is where the exciting event begins, actually. This is where we all come together and we start thinking, is culture actually a tool for risk-informed development and whatnot, right? So let me take this opportunity to invite our panelists, very, very esteemed panelists who would be taking the discussions forward. First, I would like to invite Bilal. Bilal, can we have you on screen so that everyone can have a glance at you?
Hi. Hi, Dr. Repaul.
Hi. So Bilal is currently doing his PhD in informatics and computing from Northern Arizona University. His research focuses on prediction of impact of anthropogenic activities on carbon emissions. Previously, Bilal worked for National Space Agency of Pakistan for 5 years in the field of machine learning and geospatial technology in the field of town planning, disaster mapping, route analysis, sustainability, smart cities, etc. He has performed several machine learning AI models for satellite applications. Welcome, Bilal. Thank you for joining us, although from a very, very weird time zone, but thank you. Next up, we have Taiwo with us. So Taiwo is a master's student of environmental risks and human security at the United Nations University. He is passionate about climate change adaptation and building a resilient and sustainable environment. He has written numerous academic research that addresses flood, drought, climate change perception, environmentally induced migration, and risk reduction, which are published in international journals and newspapers. He's an active contributor to the Africa Youth Advisory for Disaster Risk Reduction and the founder of youth-led initiative named Geohazard Risk Mapping Initiative. Welcome, Taiwo. Thank you for joining us today. And the next person is actually a close friend of mine, and I am especially privileged to introduce her. So we have with us Dr. Nuraini Rahma Hanifa, and she is the 2021 winner of the Women in DRR Leadership Award for her work as a rising star in the field of disaster risk reduction. She works with the Research Center for Geotechnology Research Organization of Earth Sciences, National Research and Innovation Agency. Rahma founded U-Inspire Indonesia in 2018 and U-Inspire Alliance together with 8 countries in 2019. It is a youth and young professional platform on science, engineering, technology, and innovation for the implementation of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. She has also been appointed as a young scientist representative in the Asia Pacific Science, Technology, and Academia Advisory Group of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Rahma, thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Repaul and everyone.
And last but not the least, we will invite our co-moderator, Saran, back. So those of you who joined late, let me take this opportunity to introduce her once again. So she is an active member of Confederation of Risk Reduction Professionals, which is of course a part of U-Inspire Alliance that I was just talking about. She's a doctoral student at the Dayalbagh Educational Institute in India. She holds a master's in disaster management with a concentration in conflicts, peace, and development. She also worked as a research consultant with Oxfam India in the project on transboundary rivers of South Asia. Welcome, everyone. Welcome on board. So let us begin our envisioning exercise. So what we will do is that we will begin with a short video because we are all in the mood for it. So we'll run through a short video, and then I have a couple of questions for all of you. So let us just go through the video once, and then I will pose all my questions to you. So I hope everyone had the opportunity to see the song. And this is a future none of us want, where resources are being sold as commodities. This is a future that we do not envisage. We often use cultural heritage or the term or the phrase culture just to say out loud that it is probably a tool for us to build resilience. But then again, we forget that right now, we are also a part of culture making. We are the ones who are defining a sort of culture for our future generations. So it is not merely looking back and having a glance at our traditional knowledge, our indigenous practices, learning from them, contextualizing them, and using them right now, but it's also about creating a culture which is befitting for the future that we all want to see. This was the entire purpose of having this very open and candid discussion with all of you. We do have the panelists with us, but then anyone who is interested to take part in the conversation are free to do so. Every one of us in this particular room, we come from a different cultural background, we come from different educational, academic background, and we have a completely different, almost different perspectives of how climate change is, what disaster risk is, how do we deal with conflicts, how do we usher in peace. So these are the questions that we would try to answer today through discussions, through our deliberations. So my first question, basing it on the very title of our conference, Climate.Culture.Peace, I would like to know from first the panelists and then anyone who would want to answer, what is your understanding of culture? How do you perceive it? It's very important that we kind of delimit ourselves to the understanding of what culture or cultural heritage means. So who would go first? Maybe let's start with Rahma.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Repaul, and greeting from Indonesia to everyone. I totally agree that we are also part of the one making culture in this age. So I see culture as a manifestation of a long time process of human collective intellectual achievements that is also building our social behavior that we have now, but we are also deciding on how we want to bring this culture moving forward to our generation and the next in the form of local knowledge, beliefs, arts, laws, customs, capability, and habits of each individuals into the society.
Thank you, Rahma. Taiwo, would you want to comment on that? What is your perception of?
Yes, absolutely. To equally add more to what Rahma said, it's very, very crucial that we see culture in the sense of people's norms, their attitude and beliefs, and the way they actually see their environment. Looking at it in the cultural environment, for instance, people's cultural way also, I mean, is a determinant of how you pass the environment, how you make use of the resources within, whether you have within the environment also. So it's absolutely the people's way of life and how they interact within each other. Perfect.
Ways of life. That's a very important phrase that we have come up with. Bilal, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody. I mean, being from a scientific background who is not blessed with all the lavish words, but what my interpretation of culture is always being, it's that rainbow which has different colors, that what my beliefs are, what I eat, where like what the dresses I have, what sort of thoughts I have, what are the social and the cultural norms I have. So all of these basic style of living, when they jumble up together to form the beautiful color as a form which we see as a rainbow. This is called as the culture, what I see. And we all have our own different rainbows, which everybody has. It's very unique, very diverse, and very beautiful to have. Thank you.
Perfect. Colors. So now we have a very polychromatic view of what culture is, which is very accurate, actually. Saran, you bring in the social science out of all of us. So over to you. What is your perception of culture?
So I think culture, it's a way of life, as almost all the panelists have said, or the wiring of my brain, because it provides me with a lens through which my reality of the world gets formed. And it definitely is not limited to religion, caste, race, or faith. I mean, it forms a significant layer of our everyday living, probably the habits that we share. And how I perceive culture, I think I perceive it as an evolving embodiment through varying reactions of mine to the rules or customs that were introduced to me as, this is yours, this is your culture. By that, I think I mean that there have been times when I have complained about it, which exposed me to isolation into my own social bubble, maybe. Then there were times when I squared up to it, when I had a truth or what is correct of my own. Then there were also times when I stuck with it, I obeyed it, or I conformed to it and could relish the benefits that it still brought along.
Wonderful. So this makes me understand that this is something that we are constantly learning. I mean, we do have different belief systems, we have plurality of thoughts, and we constantly try to understand which one fits us. And at the same time, the entire stream of what we call culture is constantly evolving, it's constantly flowing, it's not stagnant at one point. So this brings me to the question, and this is for you, Saran. While most of our panelists agreed that culture is always in the making, it's nothing that, it's not in the past and we have to look back and learn from it. Do you agree to it? And if so, how? Have you in your own experience felt that yes, culture is evolving?
Yes, I totally do. As I had said, for me, culture is continuously evolving. So it definitely is dynamic, as you said. So I think recalling something that a political theorist, Professor Bhiku Parekh, had said along the lines of culture, as a result of changes in environment, technological inventions that have come up, and like other factors, I think today we are opportune to live in a world which is more multicultural than ever. So it is no more a plural, monocultural world, I mean, largely. So we are gradually accepting the value and the need of learning from each other's cultures and adding to each other's vibrance. India, in this context, being such a culturally diverse country, has n number of examples where the dynamism of culture is evident. And I think one such latest example at the top of my memory, it comes from Kochi Metro Rail Limited in Kerala state, where transgender people were offered employment a few years ago. And I think it's a sight to behold, as it clearly reduces the vulnerabilities in our society and it steers us towards capacity building. And I think this dynamism that we are churning for the upcoming generations is shaped by our consciousness and also mindfulness of not just respect and dignity for each other in general, but also of the urgency that has come up for dealing with climate change and disasters and the need of an unbiased and together approach for it. Maybe something like common but differentiated capacities, if I may call it.
Perfect. So this actually links to what climate action is all about, common but differentiated responsibilities. Wonderful, Saran, thank you for that. My next question would be to Rehma. Rehma, you are in a way inspiration to most of us. You have been a leader in getting together. You inspire Indonesia. You have played a pivotal role in how You Inspire Alliance is now. And the entire thing is being led by youth and young professionals. And the future that we are envisaging is for those youth and young professionals. So how do you think youth and young professionals might play a role with their own skill sets in transmitting this idea that it's not only about science, it's not only about technology, it's not only about mobile applications, it is also about culture, it is also about context. So what is your perspective on how youth and young professionals can foster this idea?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Repaul. And I think I would like to take what Saran has mentioned previously. This is something that we build together. It's not one woman show, like not only my show, but it's because it's a collective effort. And it's amazing that when we are connected, now we are connected in 14 country chapters. For you who are new to You Inspire Alliance, You Inspire Alliance is a network of youth and young professionals in Asia and the Pacific working in science, technology, and innovation to support disaster and climate resilience. And it's the wonderful process is how we can interact, we can get connected and interact with all of you. We found similarity, but also we found different things, but we are trying to adjust all of this different culture. And I think this is how we are building our collective consciousness. I think all of us have something that we want to change together, especially relating to climate change and disaster. And I think we all agree that we cannot bring this as a fault of government or our parents or anyone, but we are part of the solution, and we are part of the movement that can eventually build this new culture. So when we think that maybe it's because people are lack of understanding, but we are part that can rebuild this culture and awareness that we live together with this climate change, we live together with this dynamic earth. And we see that even though the disaster happens in Indonesia, it can affect India, such as the 2004 earthquake and tsunami. And we also have disasters and climate change affect all of us. And disaster, we can learn from each other how we deal with disaster and how we lived more in balance, more harmonized with the nature. So I think that the way that we are disruptive, we can think beyond the boxes that are given to us. I really enjoy when we are having the Future Literacy Lab. We are on the RR Future Thinking 2045, and it's not just one country, but it's 15 countries sitting together, talking together, and we are trying to just reframe ourselves, starting to think from zero again, and starting to think what kind of 2045 that we want to achieve, how we can achieve that, how our daily life, and as you mentioned, we always have technology, science together with us, but we definitely see that this collective effort and collective consciousness that we learn from each other can build our culture that we want to build ahead for a better resilience and a peace world.
Thank you, Dr. Rama. Thank you so much. Our panel just got a lot brighter because I see Aparna raising her hand. I will invite her in. Aparna ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Repaul. Thank you to all the distinguished panelists who have really brought for this lively discussion. I'm really impressed. I've been sitting here and I'm just thinking about the power of youth and what the ideas, the fresh ideas that all of you have. And I just want to ask to each of you panelists one question. We've been talking about culture in a very positive light. You know, it does invoke nostalgia. It does invoke, you know, sense of belonging, identity. You can say it also gives a positive, you know, it's like a personality, integrity, all the things that good things about culture. But those of you who have been working in disaster risk reduction or dealing with other imminent threats, what do you think is the role of culture in increasing, let's say, disaster risk or causing conflicts? Do you think there are these culture also has these kind of forces and heritage, for example? Is it really something very benign, or is it also a cause of conflict? Is it also a cause of inequality, or some of the root causes which make disasters root causes of disasters. We enjoyed that wonderful video on Ode to No Natural Disasters. So over to you. Let us know what you think.
Bilal, you want to go first? It seems that
Yeah,
you are
sure.
to answer.
Yeah, I was just, thanks for the great question. And I think this question pretty much sums up the whole event that is, happening right now in terms of this conference. That I get it. When we, I said earlier that the culture is basically the different colors that we possess in our society. And when those cultures meet together, there is always a distinguished lines. So, and then we do have all the things which you said, that we might have conflicts, we might have confusions, we might have issues to solve. But the fact of the matter is that there is no point hiding it. That is the thing which is at most, the pride, the dignity, the source of inspiration, and the style of life of each and every individual. So everything that revolves for the disaster risk reduction or for the disaster management, I believe the culture is one of the pretty upmost or the decisive factor to implement, because I read somewhere in an article, I forgot the name of the author, but he wrote a very beautiful line that to cut the butter, you don't need a laser, you need a butter knife. So that's the thing, basically. And basically the culture is that butter knife, and the disaster risk reduction is to have that butter. So if I sum up my statement, is that we do have the conflicts, we will have a conflict, and we will not hide it, we will not solve it. But it's the matter of acceptance and understanding the realities, and then giving them the priority, and that's how I believe we should go to solve all of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bilal. Thank you.
Rama, your comments?
Yeah, maybe just smallly adding to what Bilal has greatly explained. I also agree there is no such natural disaster, and it's also a part that You Inspire has been advocating, because the nature is given, and the dynamics is because our earth is breathing. But the disaster will come when the human is living there. And I think the root causes also includes the welfare level, because I think most of the disaster also happen where the welfare is not really built. So I think it's important to also ensure that the basic needs are fulfilled, because I think once the basic needs are fulfilled, then people can start to think about climate change and disaster. But when I also reflect to my own culture, and when I hear the other culture as well, we actually have our ancestors living together with the nature. So every time they build their house, they will build their house in conjunction with the dynamics that are in their surrounding, because I think our ancestors is living more thinking with the environment where they lived. And I think it's something that started to decrease, but we are starting to reviving that again, like ecosystem-based disaster and green mitigation, green effort mitigation. But it's actually already there. So for example, in Indonesia, our the traditional houses is built seismic resistance and flood resistant. People are not building their houses directly near the sea, but they need to have a coastal forest, and they will live behind that coastal forest. They have many traditional ways. They preserve it into the songs, and it helps the people in a small island, Western Sumatra, in Sumula Island. They have a smong, and they survive the tsunami because of this traditional knowledge. So I think, and we have a lot of heritage. When we are digging about this kind of heritage, there are also a message to read the nature and also to live with the nature. So I think it's important what Repaul has mentioned in the beginning, how to revive and maintain our ancestors' culture, but also how to build how to be part of the rebuilding the culture itself, because I think that is also how we deal and how is our capability to ensure our basic need. So I think our basic need, we cannot like expecting someone else to fulfill our basic need, but it's part of our culture to fulfill our own basic need and to think like maybe we need to adapt differently places by places, but it's our own responsibility and it's part of the culture that we need to build. So I think it's part of, yeah, the culture that we have is and the way that we live with the nature is a basic element that we need to build living with climate change and disaster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rema. We have 2 hands up. Aparna ma'am, I will come to you
I
later.
think later, yes, I think later, because I want to ask, yeah, later.
So we'll move on to Tatenda, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Apologies if I'm not.
Yes, you have actually pronounced it well. Thank you, Dr. Repaul, for calling me in. Well, I have got like 2 or 3 questions. The first, I'm going to direct it to Saran, where she was talking about culture being dynamic, ever evolving. And from the first video by Rahul, where he was showing us about Mumbai and, you know, some things which are happening in Mumbai. And from that video, I was actually, you know, creating my own stories. And I created a topic which I themed the train culture, basing on what, you know, people perceive trains, how people are responding to the different, you know, things which are in Mumbai, basing also on the maybe changing environment, changing population. So the question now is, since you have said culture is ever evolving, now, number 1 is who defines culture? That's number 1. And number 2 is who then, or rather, what shapes our culture? Who is in charge of shaping our culture? Because obviously something which is ever evolving. So who is actually shaping that culture? Is it, number 1, the environment? Or number 2, it's ourselves? Or number 3, it's our ancestors? Because at one point we'll be saying, we want us to go back to what our ancestors were practicing. So are we being shaped by our ancestors? Are we being shaped by our environments? Are we being shaped by ourselves? Then another issue is in relation to this culture thing. So if culture is ever evolving, can we say, or rather, can we not say culture is eroding? Because it's evolving. So should we phase away those terms, culture erosion, because culture is evolving? And maybe I'll go back to this statement in the video by Manash, where they were saying there are no natural disasters. It's a question to all of us. Okay. I believe that this statement, it actually gives us a challenge as the youth. And I like to term ourselves, or rather to associate ourselves with the generation unmute. So in regards to this statement, what are we going to do to ensure that we end the so-called natural disaster statements, natural disaster sentiments, and become more responsible? And so how are we going to balance these 2 things, culture and becoming more responsible? Because at the end of the day, we want also to be making our own culture. But at the same time, we want also to be as sustainable as we can be. So culture being an evolving factor, are we not destroying the sustainability aspect? So yeah, I think for now, that's all. Thank you.
Saran, the question was to you.
Yes. Thank you for that, for those two very powerful questions, which I think just made the discussion way too thought-provoking and deep. So first thing, as you said, it's true that saying that culture is getting eroded or cultural erosion, that stands out of the way when we are talking about culture being evolving in nature. Now, who decides what culture is? I think that is also shaped by how the meaning of culture itself is evolving. I mean, earlier, maybe a few decades ago, we still understood culture in relation with caste, creed, race, or the traditions that we followed. But over a period of time, I think we have begun understanding culture more as a way of life and what comforts us, how I see my world, how I want it to be. So that is making the understanding of culture more individualistic in its approach and its perspective. So with that, I think culture being a collective consciousness, while it is going in an opposite direction to that, but still that is what is happening because it's related to more with individuals' comfort. So the question of who decides what culture is, I think it's each to his or her own understanding of culture lately. And I would like if any other panelists want to add anything to it, or Dr. Repaul or Ms. Aparna.
Well, I first of all really thank Tatendra for those very deep questions that he has asked. One was like, Tatendra, let's try to, because there were so many of them, right? And I tried to write them like, so it's like is nature, is environment, shaping culture, and who is getting to, who gets to decide what is culture? So do you think it is really up to the individual, or is it the family, which is a unit? When you are young, it starts from there, then it goes to school, then it goes to education. So in a way, it is an iterative process in understanding whose culture, who decides culture. Are organizations such as ICROM or UNESCO, I don't know if yesterday you were in the keynote lecture, are we, the ones who are defining the dominant discourse or just propagating the dominant discourse, or is it coming more locally from the ground up, or is it also part of the the market economy we are living in, because that is also part of our culture. And so how do we take that? And I'll just keep quiet after this because I want to hear others, and I just wanted to take it a little bit further, as Tatenda was trying to say, like, is it individual, is it family as a unit, is it the school where we go to, or is it the government of the day, or is it these intergovernmental, or are these intergovernmental organizations? So I'll let you. Yes.
I think this comes in a multifaceted way, in the sense that, for instance, now within the particular family, if you have a child growing up in the family, he tends to be introduced to some set of norms and tradition, right? As he goes to school, he also tends to be introduced to some terms of norms, science, and technology that he learns in school also shapes him as he grows. And as a matter of fact, while I say it's multifaceted, is the fact that at the same time, well, government policy, government law as a procedure also shapes some set of culture. So when it's a way of life, it's not just a component alone. It's a general way. So many ways: how you eat, how you move, how you live, your resilience to the environment at the same time. So meaning that it's not just not every time there is bottom up. It can be bottom up, and it can also be bottom, from top to down approach. So it could be in two ways. It's not a straight line that say, oh well, it is to say my family will shape the way I reflect to life. It can at some point, whereby external factors, environmental factors, science and technology, as I grow over the time, begin to change how I perceive my environment and change how I do things over time. Thank you.
But then where is the disconnect? I'm sorry, I jumped in. But where is the disconnect? I mean, why are we here? And why are we where we are today? If we have what Rahma said, if in Indonesia we knew that you have to first grow forest and then live behind and leave some land. And in many cultures or in many civilizations in many countries, we know this. Then why are we here today? It's my question to all of you. Like, why are we here today? Where we are on the brink of this climate crisis.
Bilal.
Yeah, thank you. Just to briefly comment on the previous discussion and then to Ms. Aparna's recent question, so what I've always feel is that culture basically is such a complex model that would influence from the individual to the society level. Because when I see, like on my personal example, that the cultural interpretation, the cultural influence that my grandfather had, that's slightly different from my father, and that's more different to me. I get it, the core is the same, but the interpretation and the way I deal with that culture is kind of different in all of 3 generations. So I think, and it's a combination of all the factors that earlier you guys described, that it's environmental, it's technological, it's the advancement, it's the more awareness, or you can name all those factors. So it goes from the single individual level to the society level, and it's a two-way cycle. I'm inspiring, I'm not saying inspiring, but I'm influencing the society and society influencing me as well at the same time. So it's a complete cycle that is being happening. And coming back to your question, that where is that the difference or the breakage which you said, what I feel is that in the previous centuries, in the previous, if you see the history, the pace of the life was not that quick, or the advancement of the civilizations were not that rapid. The interactions of the civilizations were not that fast. Like we see now in the 21st century, the interactions, the advancement, the awareness, and I want to add one more line in it, the competition. Yes, we do have wars in the past, but those were the wars. Now we have a very, we call it healthy competition. And that is where, all of our cultural behaviors are influencing and changing day by day. Like, and it's about the economics, it's about the power, it's about all of those factors that leads us to where we are right now. And basically, it might sound a bit philosophical again, but again, one statement that if you have a hammer, then everything would be a nail. So it's that thing which is making us to where we are right now, and that's why we have that difference. I hope I answered your question, Mr. Parna. Thanks.
Well, maybe before I thought I should just interject. So after all that you have said, can we now say, or can we now face the term cultural erosion? Should we do away with it, or should we continue having that term? Because obviously culture is evolving from what we have said. And now, should we keep that term, or should we remove it?
Who would want to take this?
I think nobody wants to answer this question.
This is almost like a bouncer in a cricket.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean.
But let me simplify or rephrase the question, as in, is it not about perception when we say culture is eroding? For someone who has an acceptable mind, a broad mind, a person of such sort would try to understand what is changing, why it is changing, and how it is changing. But someone who is fixated upon the idea that what we had done, what we had been doing is the correct way of doing things, and it cannot be made better, that is the point when he will say, no, this is not changing. This is eroding, because what I am used to see, what I have seen for years together, I'm not seeing it anymore. So perhaps it is eroding. for him. But it's basically a matter of perception. For someone who has a very broadened spectrum of mind, probably would like to see the rationale behind it, the logic behind it, as to why it is happening. So maybe it's not about the syntax of the phrase that culture is eroding. It's possibly about the semantics of who is tagging that entire activity of culture getting eroded. Perhaps this is my take, and you all are open to comment on that.
I think at this point, our audience should also intervene. Yeah, because this, I think, nobody wants to do that.
I just want to add a quick comment to that. It's a very good debate, that cultural eroding or cultural evolution, or whatever you can name it. What I feel is that, so the first thing that we need to understand is that if 2 centuries ago, from the culture I belong, my ancestors lived in a certain way, then that was their culture. And if I am totally different from that, then right now what my lifestyle is, that is also a culture. I get it. It might not be the one that my ancestors used to have, but still what my lifestyle is, that is itself a culture in itself. That's the number one thing that we need to establish. That the second part is that if in comparison to that time to this, that whether it was a cultural erosion or what, this is where we need to kind of draw a table, that pros and cons of all the things, that what they were doing right, what I am having right. And it's very difficult to set a standard. That's why I said that maybe nobody wants to answer this question, because it's a thing. I mean, it's seeing like a half glass full or half glass empty. It's one of those debates that it's both would be right at the end of the day. So what I feel is that the solution of this, if there is a culture erosion, is only that make sure that sticking to your basic social society norms, and then keep on accepting the advancement that is happening in the world. And that's how we can actually minimize the cultural erosion and accept the changes that are going on around the world, because it's impossible to live, the human man can live 500 years ago. It's impossible. It's impossible. I cannot travel on a horse. I'll definitely go by a plane. So, and now it's a cultural erosion or it's advancement, that's a separate debate. But again, so the bottom line is that sticking to your social cultural norms, but accepting the advancement would gonna minimize the cultural erosion and definitely gonna reshape into the new form of the culture. And change is always good, I feel. Maybe, I don't know.
But then then this is my last question to the panel, and I would really encourage others to join as well, because I don't think so this is my discussion, this is the discussion of the Youth Forum. So my question again is more on the behalf of all the organizers, I think, is what do we do with the plastic at the bottom of the sea? And what do we do about the coral reef disappearing? And what do we do about the garbage menace? And what do we do about, so it's not only the carbon in the, atmosphere, but the processes that led to it. And are some of these processes then cultural processes? And if these are those cultural processes, the question is it erosion? Is it progress? But then how do we bring this? You are the leaders of, the future is now. And we have to think about, you have this immense responsibility. We are all sharing this responsibility, but still this needs to be answered that with science and technology, do we need some cultural lenses to understand how human-earth interactions have changed over time, and what is the impact then on this environmental disaster? And I cannot stay on a horse. I agree. I cannot take a horse when I have a plane. And similarly, someone might argue that they cannot take water in a earthen pot if you have a plastic bottle. So is it a matter of choice? Is it a matter of policy? I leave it to you, to this panel.
Bilal, one second. Okay, yeah, yes, please, Bilal, continue later.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Dr. Rama, yes, please, go ahead.
Oh, I can do it after Bilal.
Bilal, you are up, it seems.
Thank you, Rama. I mean, just a quick. The best part about culture discussion is that there is no right or wrong. So whoever would be perceive anything would, in a way, approaching the things right. The problem with the plastic bottles and the climate change and the destruction that we are causing is basically that we have taught the society, or the society taught me that I should have a lavish lifestyle, but I forgot and I don't want to understand the responsibilities that I should have towards the society. This is where the problem actually have, and this is where we all needs to be on our A game, because at times I feel like this is our responsibility to tell people. A person who is catching the fish and that's his daily earning, he do not understand what effect he might have on the ocean, or he would not consider that, because for that person catching that fish is the utmost important thing to do. So this is where these are the forums, these are the debates would gonna help us out, because the lesson taken from these discussions, for me especially, that it's like I need to understand myself first, that what my responsibility is to the society, and then it comes to the other people, like my friends and my family, and then to whom I interact on a daily basis. So it's the lack of awareness, or it's the lack of taking the responsibility towards this issue. These are the major concerns that we need to address, and I believe we are the responsible ones to take the initiative per se. Thank you, Rahma, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Bilal. It's wonderful, and I think it's very deep what Ms. Aparna has raised, and Dr. Repaul has also raised. But I also wanted to say that everything have two sides, bad and good things. And when we are focused on the negative energy, then the energy and negative energy will be dominant. But when we focus on the positive energy, then the positive energy will be dominant, and it can infuse to the others. I always remember what our first president of Indonesia, Pak Sukarno, has mentioned. He said, like, give me 10 young people and I will change the world. So I think I really see this potential within the Inspire network. The young people comprises of 2.9 billion in the world in the age of 15 to 40 years old, which is almost 38% or 40% of the global population. If we are focusing on all the bad people who are throwing the garbage, then maybe we will always be stuck, be angry. But if we are focusing, if we can emphasize, we know that out there are young people who every month are going to the sea taking the garbages. I have in my community as well, the youth community is going to the youth tourism place, and they are getting all the trash every month. So if we are actually focusing on those kind of activity, and if we can emphasize on how to publish those kind of activity more, we can actually transfer the positive chemistry to the others, rather than growing our angriness toward the people who are doing those kind of things. I really see how our friends in Inspire not only using science, technology, and innovation, but also they are doing more effective research, doing big data analysis and information, how they do risk communication. We see a very great video today that was shown by very good young people from India. And if we can bring more of these kind of messages across the globe, maybe we can bring all these behavior changes. The young people are very close to technology and very adaptive. They tend to be they tend to be rapidly adaptive. Yeah, we discuss in the Future Literacy Lab on the murmuration society, which is able to adjust within the changes, but also to keep the positive energies. So it can also be the advancement of local action that can directly contribute to the community, and also supporting evidence-based policymaking and more advocacy based on data, addressing cross-cutting issue that tackled by knowledge sharing as well. So I think it's if some of us can continuously do this, we can eventually influence more people to work together to build a better planet for us. And I think this is what is our spirit about, is to build the collective efforts, collective intelligence, and all these collective actions. Because if we are focusing just to the negative energy will spread stronger. But then we need to have some people who can keep the positive energy and keep the chemistry going on. And it's not a one-day show, it's not a 2 hours discussion, but it will be a long life efforts, maybe until we become grandmother and grandparents. But we need to keep these efforts to continue. That's from me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thank you so much. This was basically a lot of summation that we had. Thank you so much. So we have 2 hands that have been raised. Bhola, I would first come to you, and then we will go to Zeynep. Bhola.
Yeah, thank you. I have been hearing the discussion, and I think I agree to something. I agree to some things, and I don't as well. But to a certain point where Mr. Bilal has said about the traveling rather than with horses to the planes. So here I agree that yes, this innovation, what we call this innovation, has led something of which we can utilize time. Again, coming back to what Rahma has said, that we go into the beach and clear out the beach, the water bottles, the plastic bottles, which Aparna ma'am has mentioned. So are we as youth are going to do this in a circular stage? Like we, every Sunday we utilize our time to go and clean the beaches, and next week again it's, you know, there are the things in the beaches again. So we do this, or we use, okay, this time we clean the beach, now we go for doing something, so that we actually can progress. My issue is with the knowledge management that has been done in our society. Like, yes, of course, it's a good thing that we understand the things, we go to the beach, we clean up the things, but what happens? Why is it continuing? How do we stop this? How do we stop this? Because it's not that it cannot be a circular process. What I think we also discuss about the disaster cycle, it's no more a cycle sort of thing. So I think this actions that we do as a youth, if we have to go into the development where culture is also playing an important part, I think we have to move forward. And I think the knowledge management thing, or the practices that we do, which is harming the culture, which is harming the environment, this needs to change, and maybe a strict action from the policymakers. Those kind of things needs to happen, because every Sunday you cannot go to the same beach and do the same cleaning stuff just because you're a youth and you know the importance of an environment. I think this trend of cyclic process needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhola, for that wonderful point that you have raised, actually. And before I go on to the other raised hands, would any one of you want to comment on that? About youth and young professionals going round about in circles and doing the same thing. Yes, Taiwo, yes.
Yes, I would love to comment on that. And I would like to say that Bola raised a very, very crucial and excellent point. And I think in this context, it's very important that there's need for policy and regulations, because now we have so many initiatives. We have so many youths who are already raising advocacy, who are creating awareness. Even as to comes to the fact that the issue of a bottle and a couple of things like that, picking them to recycle them. At the same time, you still have some people who still dump it, who still engage in the same acts. And I think that the gap there is a policy, regulations, that could put people, aside the fact that you need them to be aware of the side effect of their actions. Policies into this can also be a very good way. We have so many companies now that are now transforming, to make use of, a more greener way, a more sustainable way to package your products. You get the point now. All this comes due to regulations. We have some countries in Europe now that when you buy a bottled drink, right, you can also use it to get money. You see, you can just go and just drop it somewhere and they pay you. So stuff like that, you see, that comes to the fact that what, it's true that we use these things, but the government, the policy, right, they shape the way the people believe. I mean, the people respond to such a thing, and through this way, it's minimized bottles in the ocean and stuff like that. So I believe policies and regulation also it comes as a factor to this.
Thank you, Daivo, for your comments. They were actually making sense, a lot of sense actually. Let me move to Zeynep. Yes, over to you.
I would actually like to point out something from the project I presented. During the project process, during the field work, we had a lot of interviews with the villagers in Elmalı, and actually reading the transcriptions and listening the interviews, we actually found out that this problem about traditional beehives and granaries not being used anymore is due to climate change. So it was actually coming from the villagers. But the important point is that they were not told that the problem is the climate change, but they were actually saying it by themselves. And these are people over 70 years old. And there were also some about 80 years old as well, but they were not told by someone that the problem is the climate change. But when we were hearing the interviews, they were just mentioning, oh, the nature is changing. Now it's not raining anymore. It's due to the dried out lakes. So I think it's important that we hear it coming from the local people, and especially also as me before living in Istanbul and now in Aarhus, like being in a big city, it makes it harder to relate ourselves because we are kind of detached from the nature. So I think the important point is to make this climate change, to raise awareness about the climate change. I think it's important to make it somehow relatable to people, because if you cannot experience the impacts on your daily lives, then it makes no sense, and then it will be just people, the same people trying to save the world, but that's not the case, and that cannot solve anything, I think.
Thank you, Zeynep, for bringing that up. It's very, very interesting actually. And the point that you made, that we actually need to make people understand, or at least make them feel that what the problem is, and only then can we anticipate actions from them. Perfect. Thank you so much. Tatenda, I was seeing your hands up. Were you wanting to say something, add to the discussion?
Yes. Maybe I should go back to Ispola. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. I think he raised very important points about youth going in circles, to say this week or this Sunday they are at the beach doing the same thing, the next they are doing the same thing. So I think it all goes back to sustainability, where we might also need to teach, like for example, the fishermen, or rather those people who visit the beach, the goodness about, preserving and conserving the nature. So like what Zeynep said, we need to include the people within the climate change dialogue, within the climate change discussion, so that, if we have taught maybe 100 people at the beach about the good things, of conserving and preserving their nature, and probably they will teach more, and the chain goes on and on. So instead of us as youth going to the beach every Sunday picking litter, we should actually teach the people to live in a sustainable manner. So I think it also goes back to the whole idea of sustainability, where we are saying we should transform, we should change to live in a greener environment. So at the end of the day, it's not like we have also to wait for the government policies, because honestly, for example, here in Africa, government policies and climate change, it seems like there is a gap between the two. So I'm talking specifically from Southern Africa. There is a huge gap between the two, where the government is actually talking of investment. They'll be talking of coal. And here we are talking of climate change. So within the same dialogue, somebody is actually talking of utilizing the bad methods which actually corrupt our environment. So I don't know how it can be structured to ensure that the change doesn't come from anywhere else, but it has to come within us. So it has to start like from the schools, primary schools or elementary schools, where children are being taught about climate change. So I remember at the WISE conference that I attended,
did we lose Tatenda by any chance? Yeah. Oh, you are back. Yeah.
I thought the whole screen was yes, it frozen. So it takes me back to the WISE summit that I attended last year, where the discussion was also centered around introducing the topic of climate change into schools, where it has to be part of the curriculum. So if it has to start from the schools that are doing their job, and as for us, youthful organizations should also be doing our part, to ensure that we teach sustainability to the people. We teach the people the sustainable means of conducting whatever that they are doing. So I think it's a broad area where it doesn't have to be the government alone, or it doesn't have to be the youth alone, but it has to be, the collective responsibility of everyone. So it takes me back again to Zeynep's observation during your field work, where, I've been observing the same issues here in Zimbabwe, South Africa, where, the elders are actually saying nowadays we are experiencing bad weather because the youth are not following the tradition. What is the tradition? That would be the question. What is the tradition? So basically, they are talking of sustainable means of living. So somebody was talking about going vegan. That's an example. That's sustainable. So yeah, it is a broad area which needs to be explored and which needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Tatenda. Tanmay, if you would want to join in the discussion.
Yeah, I have a couple of points to make, but do we have time for that?
I will ask you to kindly stick to 1 minute each. So you have 1 minute, Bula has 1 minute, and then we go around the panel 1 minute each, and then we conclude, because this discussion is a never-ending discussion.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I asked. So I'll make it really short. Everyone was discussing about the beach cleaning and everything. So my take on that is don't take it as a example of that, beach is going to clean in a generation or something like that. It actually gives us it's a representation or a symbol. The problem is the issue is real, and we have to look into that. So those are the messages these initiatives actually give, and how it will stop. Like in India, we actually call it charity begins from home. So we from home we have to start looking into it. We have to mold our children into right direction, educate them well, not the systemic education per se, but the actual moral education, I would say. And here actually I would like to share one personal example when where everyone is talking about policy, but I have the experience of working on government's flagship policy, Swachh Bharat Mission, which is to stop open defecation, where government actually tried very hard to stop it and give incentives to build toilet construction, and everything was in place. But the major aspect they forgot was like a behavioral change, because the toilet is going to made, but who is going to use that? The behavior is not going to change in a day or two. It's a very long process, and we have to believe in that process. So I would say, yeah, a climate change, for the climate change issue is the same. Like the issue is real. We know it is going to happen, but we need to be confident that we have to believe in the process. That I would like to share. Thank you. I hope I am not taking much time.
Thank you, Tanmay. No, absolutely not. And you very well pointed it out, whatever we were discussing. So thank you for that. Bhola, I see your hands raised. Just a minute or so, and
yes, actually, I think me and Tatenda, we were speaking on the same line. But in addition to this, I would like to say that in Northeast India, in Guwahati itself, there is a school which collects plastic waste from the students as fees for the students to be taught in the school. Now that it looks like a very good example, but are we able to do it now? This was not the case when our ancestors were even learning. So why this has come, maybe what you correctly said about the importance of what Tanmay has said, of knowledge sharing, of what does as setting this as an example, that what is the importance of saving our nature. But I think that I still don't know how they run the school based on collecting of plastic waste. So I think such examples, we need to understand such examples, and along with that we have to see where we in the process of advancement have gone wrong. Now in this present era, after the COVID had struck, we always, yes, it's now we are doing things online, but I don't think how many of us think about the e-waste. So with that, I would just like to stop.
Thank you, Bhola. Of course, there has been a lot of changes, and as we were discussing, we need to kind of look at what we had been doing, and then as Bilal pointed out, our understanding, our perception of culture is not monochromatic. There even cannot be a discussion which is black or white. It's completely polychromatic, different perceptions, different beliefs, and thereby different ways of life. So we do understand that. Thank you for bringing that out, Bhola. We have already overshot our time. So what we will do is that we will run across the panel with one question. And the question is that with this entire discussion that we have had today, it burdens upon us that we do have the knowledge, and we also do have the responsibility to act, right? So we are the fortunate ones who have this understanding of what climate change has been doing to us. We have the understanding of disaster risk, for that matter. We also have a fair amount of understanding how our culture has been shaped and how it should be shaped, or the discussion is likewise. So my question to all of you as a departing question is that, based on the discussions and the deliberations that we had today, what do you see as your responsibility from now on to contribute to this crossroads of climate action, culture, and peace? So what would be your responsibility? It's basically a statement that we want to have from you, to see that at least some of us can be inspired to act towards climate action, towards resilience, towards ushering peace, for that matter. So we all, youth and young professionals, we have to contribute in the ways that we can. So it's a way of asking for your commitment to this particular crossroads of climate, culture, and peace. So we'll start with Dr. Rahma, then I will move on to Taiwo, then Bilal, and then of course, Saran.
Thank you, Dr. Repaul. That's a very deep question. I will see my responsibility and my role toward climate, future peace, and for disaster risk reduction as three functions. The first as a responsibility as a mother. I think we as women and mother, we have responsibility to educate our children and our family. And then as a researcher, we have a responsibility to also conduct more research and bridging this research to the policy making, to the action, and so on, because I think research base can also provide a stronger basis for policy and for action. And then, of course, as part of the community. So I think as part of the community, I was also advised by my close friend, start from what we can do. So I think if we have so many homeworks, but if we are thinking, oh, there are too many things to do, how can we start? So I think we can start from what we can do. And I think having this kind of network is keeping our spirit together, keeping us motivated. I think there are always times when we feel desperate and feel demotivated, but I think having our network is keeping the motivation and keeping the spirit, and also give ourselves an opportunity to reframe and see from other perspectives. So when we are stuck, we can see other doors and other ways to do differently. And I think maintaining this kind of relationship with people who are also working in the same pathway is also important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rama. Thank you so much. Taiwo?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Rama. I think it's very important that as a youth, we have so many major roles to play. And when it comes to the fact that we are more exposed to science and innovation, and one of the key things that we can do to contribute to climate action could be advocacy, leading so many initiatives that can, contribute to community development, making people to understand their human contribution to the effect of climate change. Very, very crucial. So aside the fact that what Dr. Rama mentioned about researching, how we can communicate information and findings that will guide the government, the policymaker relies on most of these things. Youth are more vibrant. So I believe our quota majorly is what? Improving research, which can expose the intricate part of the environment and how it influences climate and culture, and even our attitude. At the same time, too, advocacy, awareness creation within our surroundings is also very, very crucial. That's my point.
Thank you, Taiwo. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bilal, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to summarize by saying one of the sentences from my favorite movie, Finding Nemo, and in it, my favorite character, Dory, she said that just keep swimming, just keep swimming. So it's the thing that we need to adopt, that it's a continuous process where, it will be a never ending, it will be not in my life, or like nobody would solve this issue and this was never been an issue if you see another way around. So it's a three-way process. Number one is learning from the intellectuals like you guys, right? Getting tons of inspiration, information, and what my responsibility is. So this is the forum. That's a step one to do, that learn from these forums. Number two step is I should change myself first. I should accept that there is my responsibility, because what I always feel is in climate change, the thing is always like pointing fingers to the other people. It's not, I feel like this is not my responsibility, it's your responsibility. So the step two is understanding and accepting that I have my responsibility and I should take that responsibility. And the number three part is that I should be able to convey this message to other people, that why we need that and how we're going to do that. And it's the thing that I should do my bit. I should not take the responsibility to change the entire world, but if I change my home to a sustainable greenhouse, that would be a victory number one. And if then I could inculcate to this approach to my neighborhood, that's the achievement number two. And
oh God, he was making the mic drop moment and we lost him. Fine, we'll get back to him. Saran, over to you. Meanwhile, he joins back.
Yes, I think I agree with the points that all the panelists have said, and mine does not differ much. So clearly, we all have a role to play in saving energy, for example. Now, I, for example, do that by lying on my couch. But on a serious note, my voice counts, and voice itself can create ripples, at least, for a bigger action. Utilizing different platforms to voice out and discuss, reaching out to the communities in our respective capacities. The irony is, I think, DRR, DRM, they are nascent stage in its implementation, because Many people know the word disaster, but do not know disaster risk reduction. Then the first and simplest step for us to do is talk about it, write about it, voice up, spread awareness, and take up small projects and gather evidence to back up the arguments that we are making.
Thank you, Saran. Bilal, you are back. We were waiting for the mic drop moment, but your video froze. So we are still waiting for the mic drop moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the technology, you know, don't trust technology that much. That's why I'm always a very orthodox person. So I was just saying that the concluding remarks was just the 3 points that learn from the intellectuals, accept my responsibility, and teach to other people. And if I would be able to change myself, my house, and my neighborhood, I'm doing my bit. And I should keep on doing that. And this is what the lesson taken from all of that event for me. That's it.
Thank you, Bilal. Thank you so much. We actually have so much of posts coming in on our chat box. So we can read some of them. There's, for example, Prachi mentions that our contribution to climate action lies in our roles in daily life, which basically summarizes what Bilal was mentioning. So this is so accurate. Culture is the lifeblood of our society, since we express them in the many ways by telling our stories, celebrating, remembering the past, entertaining ourselves, protecting historical building, artworks, and imagining the future. Yes, of course, there's so much. It's a multi-layered dimension, to be very precise. Yes. Rajdeep mentions our contribution to climate action: understand the issue and learn and unlearn and spread awareness to society with your actions and learning. If the balance between supra and sub-identities culture in a society is not established while building the peace and national identity culture in the post-conflict, new conflicts may arise. Very true. Let's remember the motto of President of Bosnia: love yourself, respect others. Perfect, perfect. These are basically those thoughts that we would be taking home. Anyone who would want to make a last comment before we wrap up everything? Anyone? And I would request all the organizing members to kindly switch on the video so that we can see that you have been tirelessly working hard, taking notes, taking pictures for Instagram Reels for that matter, doing so many things as a youth will do. Yes, Zeynep, you want to make a remark?
A small contribution. Yeah. We have a saying in Turkish. It's everyone should put their hands under the stone so we can lift the stone. But it's about acknowledging the reasons and finding a motivation to put our hands under the stone, I guess.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you to all of you for joining us in this wonderful session. And we actually overshot our time by almost an hour, but none of us realized because we were busy in our deliberations and discussions, which is very interesting. So I would like to conclude with one of my favorite movies, Dark Knight, where Alfred talks to Master Wayne. He asks him, why do we fall? And Master Wayne has no answer to it, but he remembers that what he was taught in his earlier days. He says, we fall so that we can learn to pick ourselves up, right? So probably we are at that particular point in time when climate crisis has had us overwhelmed. We are facing innumerable challenges. We are facing so many problems, but the point is that this perhaps is a down in our period of life, but then we also have to pick ourselves up, because if not us, who else? The world in eventuality would be left to only us, and we would be the ones living here. So if not us, if we do not go back to the beaches every Sunday, who is going to do it for us? I know it will not matter. I know at the end of the day, it will probably be me and Bilal doing it, but how does it matter? We are doing it for ourselves. In the long run, this is going to benefit us. So yes, we have to take the positivity, as Rahma correctly pointed out. We have to snowball it. We have to make use of the domino effect, spread the positivity that we are the part of the solution. We are not the part of the problem. The problem has been created. We are at our lowest probably, but this is our time to rise up. And we, the youth and the young professionals, we have the potential to do it. I believe it, and I agree that most of you will believe it. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. It had been a wonderful session. There's no doubt about it. And I really hope that we are able to meet each other sometime in the near future, physically, not virtually though. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.